Somewhere in deep space, there is something that should not exist. Not rare, not unusual, impossible. Scientists pointed the most powerful telescope humanity has ever built into a patch of sky that looked completely empty, and what stared back at them broke the rules of physics as we know them. They found galaxies, fully grown, fully packed with stars, fully structured, sitting at a point in time when the universe itself was barely a newborn. Some were so massive, so early, that the astronomers who found them didn't know what to call them except one thing: universe breakers. And buried inside some of these ancient objects is an even stranger detail, one that suggests their stars might be older than the universe they live in. If that sentence didn't make sense to you, good. It didn't make sense to the scientists either. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why one of the most basic facts in all of astronomy, the age of the universe itself, is suddenly back on trial. For most of modern astronomy, one number has stood like bedrock: 13.8 billion years. That's the age of the universe, calculated from the moment of the Big Bang to right now. This isn't a rough guess. Scientists arrived at this figure by measuring the leftover heat from the Big Bang itself, a faint microwave glow that fills every corner of the sky, combined with how fast galaxies are moving away from us. Stack those measurements together, and you get a number precise to within a fraction of a percent. For decades, that number was untouchable. Every galaxy, every star, every structure in the cosmos was expected to fit somewhere inside that 13.8 billion year timeline. Then a new telescope opened its eyes, and the timeline started to crack. The James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, isn't just a bigger, better Hubble. It sees in infrared light, which means it can capture light that has been stretched and faded by billions of years of travel through an expanding universe. Here's the part that should give you chills. In space, distance is time. The farther away something is, the older the light is that's reaching us. Looking at a galaxy 13 billion light-years away doesn't just mean it's far. It means you are looking at a fossil, a frozen snapshot of what the universe looked like 13 billion years ago. So when JWST turned its mirror toward the deepest, darkest, most distant patches of sky, astronomers expected to see the universe's baby pictures: small, messy, shapeless blobs of gas just beginning to clump into stars. That is not what they found. In the very first batch of images JWST ever released, researchers spotted 6 objects that made no sense. These were galaxies dating back to just 500 to 700 million years after the Big Bang, meaning the universe was only about 3% of its current age. At that stage, galaxies are supposed to be small and just getting started. Instead, these 6 galaxies looked like fully mature adults. Some appeared to carry as much mass and stars as our entire Milky Way galaxy, a galaxy that took over 13 billion years to build. And by some estimates, a few of these objects may have been up to 100 times heavier than current theory says should be possible at that age. Astronomer Joel Leja, who worked on the discovery, admitted the team had been informally nicknaming these objects universe breakers because that's exactly what they threatened to do. According to the research team, the existence of such massive galaxies so early on challenges long-held assumptions about how quickly galaxies can even form. Think about that for a second. It's like flying over a newly settled colony, expecting to see tents and cabins, and instead finding skyscrapers already standing. The universe breakers weren't a one-time fluke. As JWST kept staring deeper into the dark, more strange, ancient structures kept appearing. In late 2024, an international team of researchers identified something they named the Cosmic Vine, a massive vine-like structure made of at least 20 galaxies, stretched out across more than 13 million light-years of space, all apparently connected like beads strung along an invisible thread. The light from this structure has been traveling toward us for somewhere between 11 and 12 billion years. In other words, we are looking at something that existed when the universe was still in its first 2 billion years of life, and yet it already had the kind of organized, interconnected structure that scientists thought took far longer to build. It's a piece of the so-called cosmic web, the vast network of filaments that connects galaxies across the universe, like a spider's web stretched across unimaginable distances. Except this particular strand of the web was woven far earlier than anyone expected it could be. Now here's where the story gets genuinely unsettling. A study led by researcher Martín López Corredera at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands, looked closely at some of these extremely distant, massive galaxies, objects that existed when the universe was only around 4 to 5% of its current age. And when they calculated the average age of the stars inside these galaxies, the numbers didn't fit. The stars appeared to be older than the universe should have allowed at that point in time. One of the co-authors of the study, physicist Fulvio Melia, didn't hide how strange this was. He described the discovery of such fully formed galaxies at such an early stage as deeply disturbing for many astronomers, because nobody has a solid explanation for how they could have formed that quickly. And he noted this new work makes the puzzle even harder to explain away, because it uses our best current scientific tools to show the stars inside these galaxies appear older than the universe itself. Read that again. Stars older than the container they're sitting inside of. It's the cosmic equivalent of finding a grandmother inside a maternity ward minutes after the hospital itself was built. This isn't actually the first time astronomers have run into this exact paradox. Long before JWST existed, there was a star nicknamed Methuselah sitting relatively close to us in the Milky Way. Early calculations placed its age at around 14.5 billion years old, older than the accepted 13.8 billion year age of the universe itself. For years, this was one of astronomy's most famous unsolved headaches. Eventually, refined measurements of the star's brightness, distance, and composition brought its age back down, just barely inside the acceptable range, with a margin of error wide enough to save the timeline, but only by a few hundred million years. Methuselah was a warning shot, a preview of the exact same problem JWST would run into years later, except this time, it isn't one strange star. It's dozens of massive galaxies, all pointing in the same impossible direction. So what if the problem isn't the galaxies? What if the problem is the number we've trusted this whole time? In a 2024 study, researcher Felix Llorente de Andres examined ancient star clusters called globular clusters, dense balls of some of the oldest stars in existence, using a method based on a type of star called blue stragglers. When he calculated the ages of several of these clusters, some came out between roughly 14.7 and an almost unbelievable 21.6 billion years old. Extrapolated further, this research suggested the universe itself could be around 26.7 billion years old, nearly double the number we've been taught for decades. To be clear, this is a minority position, and it directly contradicts the standard cosmological model most scientists still support. But it's not coming from nowhere. It's a direct response to the same impossible early galaxy problem that JWST keeps handing us, over and over, from every direction it looks. So where does that leave us? Right now, scientists are seriously weighing three possibilities. Theory 1. Our measurements are wrong. At these mind-bending distances, tiny errors in calculating a galaxy's redshift or brightness can snowball into wildly wrong age and mass estimates. Some universe breakers might shrink back down to a normal size once we get better data. Theory 2. Galaxy formation is faster than we thought. Maybe the early universe was far more efficient at building massive structures than our current models allow, and we simply need to update the physics, not the age of the universe. Theory 3. The most explosive possibility. Our timeline for the universe itself needs to be rewritten. If even a handful of these impossible ages hold up under further scrutiny, the entire Big Bang timeline could require the biggest correction in the history of modern cosmology. As one scientist studying the famous Methuselah star once put it, there's very little room left to be wrong about the age of the universe as a whole, but it is far easier to be wrong about the age of any single object inside it. That's the tension driving this entire mystery. Is it the objects that are wrong, or is it us? Here's the detail that should stay with you after this video ends. Every single one of these discoveries, the universe breakers, the cosmic vine, the ancient star-filled galaxies, the globular clusters hinting at a 26 billion-year-old cosmos, all of it has surfaced in just the last few years, from one telescope that is still nowhere near finished scanning the sky. JWST has barely scratched the surface of what's out there, and every time it turns toward a new, empty-looking patch of darkness, it keeps finding more things that shouldn't be possible. If even one of these anomalies survives further testing, we may be standing at the edge of the biggest rewrite in the history of cosmology, a moment where humanity has to admit that the story of how our universe began might be wrong. So, is it the galaxies that are lying to us? Or is it the universe's own birth certificate? If you want to keep exploring the strangest unsolved mysteries in space and science, subscribe, because the universe just keeps getting stranger from here.